Welcome to Shortlist Women in Tech series, space for women and girls to find inspiration to pursue their IT career goals. My name is Susanna Chain, and I am talking to Rebecca Starr today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, Susanna.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for being here. You are a data engineer at CloudThing, right?
That is correct, yes.
And what do you do at work?
Well, my day-to-day duties, currently I'm being hired out as a consultant doing joining a project, a government sort of sector related project, and building data solutions.
Mm-hmm. What is the most challenging part of your job?
There are many sort of challenging aspects of it, I guess. Sort of IT projects traditionally are usually quite busy. You tend to work to tight timescales. But I think a big challenge of the industry in which I work in is the fact that technology is always changing. So you always have to keep abreast of the latest and greatest technologies. So that can be a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. What is the part that you enjoy most?
I enjoy many parts of it, many aspects of it. I think I've always enjoyed keeping my hands sort of hands-on with the development side of things. I always like the challenge of a logical problem and trying to resolve it sort of in the best way possible, but it's never boring. So that's what I really like about it.
That's good. Why did you decide to develop your career in IT? What was your inspiration?
Well, I remember sort of very vividly still, it was sort of over 20 years ago now, but after I completed my honours degree, which was in fine art painting, I did the whole sort of travelling Southeast Asia experience. And after that, I landed a job as an administrator. The particular job I was doing was writing up tender applications, that sort of thing. And I have great admiration for many administrators out there, but that particular role for me it just wasn't very exciting. I found it quite sort of mundane. It wasn't very challenging. And I remember within the company I was with at that time, I sort of offered to help out testing a website that someone was doing internally. And yeah, that sort of sparked my interest in sort of IT and programming. I thought, oh, this looks quite interesting. So on the back of that, I decided to do a master's degree in internet technologies. Because I had sort of an artistic aspect, I thought maybe I could go into designing websites or animation, that sort of thing. But as it goes, the first job I could find after completing my master's degree was a data developer job. And sort of 17 years down the line, here I am, I'm still doing it.
It's funny how we get to choose our path, because I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have thought having a background in art that you will go for IT. That seems like lots of numbers and maybe maths.
Absolutely. I think it does always surprise people when I say that's my first degree. But I didn't quite go in the path I expected to take. But as it goes, because I ended up in this role, I sort of learned very much on the job. I had to kind of teach myself the database language and everything related to it. And I enjoyed it and I just stuck with it.
That's good. Have you found many women in your career path doing similar things to you?
No, really not. Throughout my career, I've probably worked in about 4 different companies. I'm just trying to think, 1, 2, yeah. And we have always been an extreme minority. Small companies, when I was working with a sort of a very small company, I was the only female on the developer team. And yeah, I've not come across many female database developers.
Yeah, actually there's a there is like research saying that only 3% of women access to a career in IT, and then only 5% choose choose to get into a leadership position. So I wanted to know your thoughts about it, why you think women are not equally in teams across companies.
That's an interesting subject, because it's something I have thought about a lot of, because my day-to-day life, I sort of tend to liaise with the majority of males, but the female developers I have sort of come across or worked with, even if they weren't necessarily database, sort of the reporting side or mid-stack, they've always been extremely organized. They've been very meticulous. They've been good communicators. They do the documentation, and historically, developers are not fans of doing documentation. They're good at knowledge share, but the only reason I can think of it is when I sort of became interested in the IT sort of realm, it wasn't a core part of the what's the word for it, curriculum. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people that ended up in IT careers were people that were interested in gaming, the sort of stereo sort of type individuals, which I've got friends. So I think because a lot of guys tend to like gaming at that time more than girls, that's why it became much more of a dominated male environment. But now, where I presume, I don't actually know this, but whether IT is part of the curriculum or whether it's a mandatory or an optional subject, but personally it should be mandatory because it's so important to everyday's job nowadays. But yeah, I just don't understand it. I don't know. I can't explain it, because it's a great career path to be in, obviously from a stability aspect and opportunity. But yeah, I wish I knew.
You just talk about stereotypes, and I was wondering how, I guess, I don't know how many stereotypes you have come across during your career, but I guess you have come across a few. Could you tell me any that you have, I don't know, it has resonated in your head for a long time?
Sure. I think when we think of sort of IT folk, I don't know if you've ever watched this program called the IT Crowd, and that sort of depicted the stereotypical image people have of an IT nerd, and that's obviously a guy with glasses, not the greatest of communicators. And to be fair, I have encountered individuals that are like that, but I certainly wouldn't say that's the majority situation nowadays. There are many sort of, I do think actually probably in the past sort of 5-10 years, being in IT has become a lot more trendy, as opposed to the nerdy type stereotype.
And any particular stereotype in regard of women in tech?
Probably a similar type image, actually. I do recall someone saying to me in one of my roles, I've never met a female I've never sort of encountered a female developer like yourself, and I don't know whether that was a good thing or not, but I think again it's that sort of stereo nerdy type, that sits at home on their own coding away, and I didn't quite meet up to that.
What do you think we could do as a society to break those stereotypes, to help to encourage more women into IT careers?
Again, a very good question. Well, certainly I think IT should be a mandatory part of the curriculum. It could be that it is. I'm just, it's been a long time since I've been at school. I have a daughter. I certainly wouldn't want to sort of enforce her into any career path, or, I want her to choose her own, but I'd like her to have that sort of access to computers and to be able to learn to use them probably at a fairly young age, because it's a very sort of standard way of working nowadays. And again, yeah, just make sure children or young girls understand or have an appreciation that this is a career path that's absolutely capable of males, females. It doesn't have to be that stereotype anymore.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You said that you've been in about 4 companies in total in your during your career. Is that right?
That's
yeah.
right.
I wanted to know if you have felt that your voice has been heard in meetings, if you have been, if you have felt integrated in the team, and
Sure.
yeah.
To be honest, absolutely. I mean, I have never felt, what's the word for it? I've never felt that my voice wasn't heard. I've never sort of experienced any, I guess, sexism in the workplace. It's always probably the opposite. People are very willing to listen. And I think sort of whenever I've gone to interviews, because there's sort of such a divide between the two sexes within the IT industry, I'd say that as a female, you're probably more likely to be hired in a way because they want to make that balance. But I've never experienced I've never sort of encountered a situation where I felt I wasn't heard. I think something I have experienced, and that is by no fault of sort of anyone else, but it's a certain level of intimidation. It can be quite intimidating when you're in a room of 30 developers and only 3 are female. And when you sort of do the round table, when you're saying what you've been doing, what you've been working on, it can be quite intimidating in that scenario to have all these people sort of staring at you. And that's probably the only part that I think my sort of colleagues, male colleagues, don't really understand or appreciate. So certain environments have been a very relaxed environment, and you know, people are very sort of relaxed with each other and quite informal. But if someone makes a joke, not necessarily at your expense, but you know, something you've said, it can be quite, yeah, it can be quite sort of, I felt embarrassed before in those situations.
Last question today. Do you think you could give any advice to the women and girls that are listening to us at the moment? Any advice if they want to change career or if they want to get into IT? What would you say to them?
I would say it is a very good area to go into. It's always different. I meet new challenges every day. I'm learning all the time. It is a lot of fun. It is absolutely a career path for girls, boys, whatever your preference, and it's an interesting one, and it can be challenging, but all careers can be challenging. But yeah, just go for it. I mean, when I did my master's, I did not know the difference between hardware and software. I came out of that sort of year study and I didn't feel like I knew that much more, to be honest. But I learned on the job, because we're all capable. We're all capable if we put our minds to anything. And yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in it, try it.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.